Well, I said to you on Monday's podcast that Opta had given us statistics about Liverpool scoring the most Premier League goals in the 90th minute or more. But most of them were winners as well, right? They've left it late again. Another winner in the Champions League. They did it against Burnley. They did it against Arsenal. A 100th minute winner against Newcastle United. Two late goals against Bournemouth in the opening game of the season. How much of these last scarf winners do you put down to mentality, Scott? I mean, we've just sort of talked about it being luck that could run out, but do you put it down to a mentality led by Virgil van Dijk that this team will not be beaten?
Isn't it amazing when you go back to the 70s and 80s of the Liverpool side that dominated English football? They scored late goals. And then the United side of the 90s and the 2000s, and they scored late goals, dominating English football. Isn't it amazing how the real top teams go to the very end and don't give up? And whether you call it a fitness thing or a mentality thing, it's a combination of the two. They absolutely give it until the very end. And, look, in terms of the Atletico game, it's a set piece. So Simeone would be really disappointed with that. But it absolutely is showing that, and it's quite scary that actually they're not playing that well and yet still finding a way to win, because there's a lot of players on an individual as well as a team basis. They're nowhere near their best right now, but they are finding a way to win. It's 100% mentality, and it's not luck at all.
Do you think that the marked difference from last season is that they are a little bit more chaotic in their style of play this year? Because I think when we were talking about Liverpool last year, I mean, even Crook, you were saying, well, they're all right, they're not great, but was actually their greatness born out of the fact that they could almost sort of efficiently ball their way through games? They could manage their way through football matches, and now it feels a little bit more sort of topsy turvy.
Yeah, and I think that's partly due to the influx of players they've had. They've got a lot more attacking players, I think, to fit in now. Florian Wirtz has to play every week, and I thought actually it was probably one of his better performances since joining Liverpool last night, because he's yet really to justify the price tag. Obviously, Isak got through, 60, 70 minutes and looked pretty sharp. Mo Salah was actually somewhere near his best, and you wonder if that was the presence of Isak. Mo sort of saying, hold on a minute, fella, you might be the most expensive player in British history. I'm the main man around here. So I did think it was, for the large part, a better performance last night. But I take your point. I'm still a little bit concerned about Jeremy Frimpong defensively, and that causes issues. Obviously, Kirk has started on the bench as a result of being substituted early at the weekend. So they are a team this season that I think it can give the opposition more chances than they did last year.
What's the impact on Ekitike of Isak's arrival? Because he dropped to the bench last night.
Well, I think he'll be disappointed about that. But I think it was inevitable. I think you said it, Sam, when we were talking about the Fantasy League, and you're one of those who's got Ekitike in his team, that Isak is going to play, isn't he? You can't spend that type of money on a player and not put him in the team. And if we know that, Ekitike will know that. He snatched at a chance late on, should have made it 4-2. Maybe that was a result of the pressure that he's feeling. It does seem a little bit odd that at the time we thought the reason they signed Ekitike was because they didn't believe they had a chance of getting Alexander Isak out of Newcastle. That's why they hijacked that deal. So to end up with them both is a little bit of a selection headache for Arne Slot. It's probably a nice one as far as he's concerned, but I do feel a little bit sorry for Ekitike because he's just got in the France squad as well, and obviously needs to be playing in order to be on the playing for the World Cup next summer.
Well, what's fascinating about going into a derby game like this is if you've got an influx of new players, a lot of them have never experienced it before. Now, obviously, there's a core of Liverpool players that know very well what the Merseyside Derby is all about. But for Isak, a bit different for him, a bit different for Florian Wirtz, a bit different for Ekitike and Kirkej, if indeed they are selected for this game at the weekend. Focus a little bit on Wirtz for me, please, Scott, because he hasn't got a goal or an assist so far. He did play much better in the game on Wednesday night. And there have been flashes, and I don't subscribe to the view that he hasn't played well at all since he's been there. But is the pressure starting to come on to him from outside? They want, the fans, the media, they want to see something from him.
I don't think it's necessarily coming from the fans. I think it's coming from the media, but the media just want to jump on everything, don't they? Look at all this money that's being spent, and this guy hasn't hit the stats of goals and assists. And look, I mean, he was very, very good in pre-season, but I always say, the real stuff starts at the start of the league season, and he hasn't been quite the player as yet. But Sam, it takes time. It's going to take time for him to bed in. Some people can go straight in and look as if they've been there for years. Other people look is if they just take a little bit of time and get used to not even necessarily the football side of things, but living in a different country. His English is very good, but still, regularly speaking a different language, eating different foods. All these type of things can affect a person as well as a footballer. So, look, again, he's another one. I mean, look, up until last night, Mo Salah, I'm sorry, he's been bang average. But at the same time, he still finds a way to score goals. It's Mo Salah we're talking about. He's, a Premier League great. So even he is not playing particularly well. And yet, no, Liverpool are winning. So it takes time. But it's going to be fascinating to see how he does fit all he's in. Because we were talking about Mark Guehi, and they're still vulnerable defensively, or they're still conceding goals. Going forward, how do you stick all these jigsaws into one piece? Now, there's 4 competitions they're going to be playing for. I do think there's going to be enough time and minutes and finishers, whatever you want to call them, coming off the bench to make a difference. And if you are going to get to the very end of Premier League and Champions League, then you need to have those options and strength in depth. But you still got to try and find the blend. And for me, the blend isn't quite there, because you're absolutely right. Last season, they were almost like a boring Pep's Man City, where they were finding a way to win and winning, almost looking in second or third gear. This season, it's not happening, and that's because these new players are coming in. So, listen, we're all enjoying it, aren't we? Because there's lots of goals when Liverpool are playing.
Yeah, and it should be a good game, because it always is a good game in the Merseyside Derby, because there's that extra little bit of upped ante, extra bit of atmosphere, extra bit of edge. Everton have been riding high after the opening round defeat to Leeds, and that was a pretty insipid performance. But Jack Grealish has certainly given them an injection of creativity. And I wonder whether or not they can take advantage of Liverpool, who played in midweek in the Champions League and have to play early. We know that Jurgen Klopp never used to like that, Crook, but Arne Slot won't moan about it.
He hasn't so far. He might do if they lose this game. I think this is really intriguing, because, as you say, the form that Everton have been in probably since the first half against Leeds on the opening day. They were dreadful in the first half, improved in the second. Obviously, the arrival of Jack Grealish has given them a real lift. I think Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall actually has been a decent acquisition as well. I'm pleased for him, because it was a pretty wretched spell that he had at Chelsea. So I think Everton are capable of going there and seizing upon this chaos, to use your words, that seems to have engulfed Liverpool defensively, and maybe getting a positive result. Obviously, the big caveat to that is their record at their record at Anfield over the last X amount of years is far from impressive.
Liverpool have lost just one of the last 28 home games against Everton in all competitions. In fact, Everton have won just 2 of the last 29 Premier League Merseyside derbies at both venues, and they've actually failed to score in 5 of the last 7. But it is a little bit of a different Everton now. David Moyes has done a good job, Scott, hasn't he?
He's done a great job. You took the mick out of me for name dropping when I said I did a Q&A with him a couple of weeks ago. But he was, honestly, it really feels like the fans, the manager and the players. And while he was disappointed that he didn't feel he got all the players that he wanted, and at this moment in time, he's not quite able to attract the players that he believes are European football worthy, it feels good at the moment. The new stadium, players like Jack Grealish coming in, Dewsbury-Hall, Crookie's right. Oh, I actually thought, even though he didn't play many minutes for Chelsea, I think he would have learnt a lot about how to conduct yourself both on and off the pitch, how to win trophies. He was part of a very successful season last season. And Jai on the other side as well. Maybe they haven't quite got the goals of the strikers up front that can guarantee you that, but he's got a good blend there, David Moyes. It's not just a difficult side to beat. There's a sprinkling of quality there too.
Yeah, and they've actually performed really well away from home over the last little while. If you go back over their last 11 games striding the summer, they've won 6 of them. And that's as many as they'd won in their previous 30 combined. There has been an uptick in form under David Moyes. And I know that you were touting yourself as a possible set-piece coach when you were with him. But they're also doing a very good job from dead ball situations. That is a huge game, 12:30. And actually, the current set-piece coach for Everton, I believe he's still working there. Charlie Adam is going to be our co-commentator at the weekend. He's going to be with us, former Liverpool midfielder, worked for Everton as well. So he's got a foot in both camps, and he's going to be doing the commentary with us on Saturday lunchtime. Looking forward to that.